Astute Quotations, Part 26. I really like clever men who challenge you. E. L. James, author of 50 Shades of Grey. Every man, through fear, mugs his aspirations a dozen times a day. Brendan Behan, Irish novelist. It is a very good feeling to be around a man who thinks women are juicy. Actress Lee Grant, blacklisted by Hollywood in the 1950s during the communist witch hunts. Every great man inevitably resents a partner in greatness. Lucan, 1st century A.D. Every eighth chemical element is a kind of repetition of the first, like the eighth note of an octave in music. John Newlands, chemist, 1837 to 1898. Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me, aren't you? Dustin Hoffman. I rarely plan my research. It plans me. Max Perutz, molecular biologist. What is known for certain is dull. Max Perutz. Uncertainty is the very condition that impels man to unfold his powers. Erich Fromm. We wouldn't have had a prayer without that gadget. John F. Kennedy, referring to the power of television. Where the stream runs smoothest, the water is deepest. Poet John Lyly, or Lilly, 1553 to 1606. It is such a relief to be told the truth. Catherine Ann Porter, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. Words can never get at the truth. Catherine Ann Porter. The papers want to know whose shirts you wear. David Bowie from Space Oddity. An excuse is a lie, guarded. Jonathan Swift. Fine words, I wonder where you stole them. Jonathan Swift. Walk in unfrequented paths. Pythagoras, 6th century B.C. Harmony recognizes harmony. Pythagoras. Judy in Disguise, a moronic top 40 hit for John Fred and his Playboy Band of Louisiana in 1967, an opportunistic parody of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds by the greatest artist to emerge since the time of Shakespeare. Lucy in the Sky was also covered by one of the worst groups in modern rock history, the Flaming Lips. Tangerine Trees and Marmalade Skies, from Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Tangerine Dream, the name of the pivotal German electronic group inspired by the previous lyrics. Old souls recognize each other instantly. The Zetas. Every woman knows the art of saying no with the lips and yes with the rest. Italian actor Marcello Mastroianni. The singer's job on stage is to make the guitar player look great. Like a soccer match, everything is setting up the next move for the next person. Chrissie Hynde of The Pretenders. Although this may seem a paradox, all exact science is dominated by the idea of approximation. Bertrand Russell. All forms of fear produce fatigue. Bertrand Russell. Question: will it last very long? Answer: no craze does. Harvard sociologist David Reisman in 1964, explaining Beatlemania. A hick town is one in which there's no place to go where you shouldn't be. Alexander Woollcott, literary critic, 1887 to 1943. To await certainty is to await eternity. Dr. Jonas Salk. Charge them by the pound. Old taxi expression regarding obese passengers. I saw the Sex Pistols play at the 100 Club. Yeah, we all did. From Preposterous Tales, 1987, by the indie group I, Ludacris. Sex is overrated. Johnny Rotten of the Sex Pistols, the greatest punk band ever. You just pick a chord, go twang, and you've got music. Sid Vicious of the Sex Pistols. Under the Bridge. Moronic lyrics from the manufactured boy band Red Hot Chili Peppers. Gabba Gabba Hey. Insipid catchphrase associated with the manufactured boy band known as the Ramones. The people who influence you are the people who believe in you. Evangelist Henry Drummond, 1851 to 1897. No one has ever picked my brains about influenza so expertly as Salk did. Sir Macfarlane Burnet, Australian virologist. The beauty of crystals lies in the plainness of their faces. Alfred Tutton, English crystallographer. Architecture is crystallized music. Goethe. Scruples that are too rigid are nothing but concealed pride. Goethe. Step out of line, the man come and take you away. Buffalo Springfield from For What It's Worth, 1966. The history of science teaches only too plainly that sources of error lurk where they are least expected. John William Strutt, British physicist, Nobel Prize winner. Magnify a small discrepancy with a view to finding out the full explanation. John William Strutt. Power does not corrupt. Fear corrupts, perhaps the fear of losing power. John Steinbeck. That film wasn't released, it escaped. Robert Altman, director of MASH. Almost all the noblest things that have been achieved in the world have been achieved by poor men. Albert Pike, 1809 to 1891, attorney, soldier, and writer. It never hurts for potential opponents to think that you're stupid. Amarillo Slim, professional poker player. The idea is to overwhelm your opponents with cues so they can't sort out what's going on. Dan Harrington, professional poker player and author. People react differently when they're under pressure or when they're relaxed. The great players pick up on that. Marcel Lusk, professional poker player. Power without the people's confidence is nothing. Catherine the Great of Russia. Self-interest usually brings injustice with it. Catherine the Great. You were in a mood to quarrel. Please inform me once the inclination passes. Catherine the Great. Little boats must keep near the shore. Benjamin Franklin. Silence is the mother of truth. Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli, 1804 to 1881. Action will remove the doubts that theory cannot solve. Tei Shi, Chinese educator. Different is not what you were looking for. Marin Cadell from The Sweater, 1992. The monkey who didn't have a realistic perception of the tree branch he jumped for was soon a dead monkey, and therefore did not become one of our ancestors. George Gaylord Simpson, paleontologist. The element of chance is useful only to the genius, and its revelations remain meaningless to the unskilled. Psychologist Jean Piaget. We know less about the ocean's bottom than about the backside of the moon. Oceanographer Roger Revelle. If you fear even dropping a single drop, you'll spill a lot. Malaysian proverb. Harry, keep the change. From Taxi by Harry Chapin, 1972. Moral indignation in most cases is 2% moral, 48% indignation, and 50% envy. Vittorio De Sica, Italian film director. The whole history of physics proves that a new discovery is quite likely lurking in the next decimal place. Physicist Floyd Richtmyer. The empiricist thinks he believes only what he sees, but he's much better at believing than at seeing. George Santayana, philosopher. Why not phone up Robin Hood and ask him for some wealth distribution? From White Man in Hammersmith Palais by The Clash. Doubts and mistrust are the mere panic of timid imagination. Helen Keller. We fail far more often by timidity than by over-daring. Journalist Ray Stannard Baker, 1870 to 1946. To refrain from an act is no less an act than to commit one, because nervous inhibition is co-equal with nervous excitation. Physiologist Charles Sherrington, Nobel Prize winner. No one holds with fervor that 7 times 8 equals 56. Fervor is only necessary in forwarding an opinion that is doubtful. Voltaire. Goals too clearly defined can become blinders. Mary Bateson, cultural anthropologist. No matter how happily a woman may be married, it always pleases her to discover that there is a really nice man who wishes she wasn't. Mary Bateson. Humility is the ability to form an accurate assessment of one's self. Charles Haddon Spurgeon, 1834 to 1892, called the Prince of Preachers. The higher a man is in grace, the lower he will be in his own esteem. Spurgeon. Well, it's 40 below and I don't give a fuck, got a heater in my truck, and I'm off to the rodeo. David Allan Coe from The Rodeo Song. Only those who risk going too far can possibly find out how far one can go. T.S. Eliot. Your aim is no better than your knowledge of chemistry. Alfred Werner, Swiss chemist, 1866 to 1919, after being shot by a failing student. I learned very early the difference between knowing the name of something and knowing something. Physicist Richard Feynman. A joke loses its point when the joker laughs himself. Friedrich Schiller, German philosopher, 1759 to 1805. Every true genius is bound to be naive. Friedrich Schiller. Dare to be naive. Buckminster Fuller. Real wealth is energy, not gold, and is therefore without practical limit. Buckminster Fuller. Great nations are simply the operating fronts of behind-the-scenes, vastly ambitious individuals who had become so effectively powerful because of their ability to remain invisible. Buckminster Fuller. How often I found where I should be going only by setting out for somewhere else. Buckminster Fuller. Because it is impossible, the fact is certain. Tertullian, 3rd century A.D. That cement, it's there for the weight, dear. From Mac the Knife by Bobby Darin. An architect of ability should be able to tell a client what he wants. Most of the time, a client doesn't even know what he wants. Ludwig van der Rohe, German architect. Too many problem-solving sessions become battlegrounds where decisions are made based on power rather than intelligence. Margaret Wheatley, management consultant. People are never more insecure than when they become obsessed with their fears at the expense of their dreams. Norman Cousins, American journalist. I'm not going down on my knees, begging you to adore me. Depeche Mode from Shake the Disease. What we love, we shall grow to resemble. Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, mystic. The least questioned assumptions are often the most questionable. Paul Broca, French physician, 1824 to 1880. Standing still is the fastest way of moving backwards. Actress Lauren Bacall. He knew the precise psychological moment when to say nothing. Oscar Wilde, from The Picture of Dorian Gray. Sounds like a description of comedian Jack Benny. They've got us surrounded again, the poor bastards. General Creighton Abrams fighting against the Germans in World War II. In war, it is extraordinary how it all comes down to the character of one man. Creighton Abrams. You are telling me what you think I want to know. I want to know what's actually happening. Creighton Abrams. If you speak insults, you'll get them too. Plautus, 3rd century BC. It is well for one to know more than he says. Plautus. No fashion is ever a success unless it is used as a form of seduction. Fashion designer Christian Dior. If you can't keep up, drag them down to your level. Lawrence Peter, author of The Peter Principle. If you have an erection lasting longer than 4 hours, please consult a doctor. From a commercial for Viagra, also known as the Quicker Dicker Upper. Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. Marcus Aurelius. I'm Archie Bell and the Drells from Houston, Texas. Archie Bell, 1968. The name of the song was Tighten Up. The excess of virtue is a vice. Greek proverb. Beginnings are apt to be shadowy. Rachel Carson, author of Silent Spring. Great fear is concealed behind daring. F.L. Lucas, English classical scholar and man of letters. With a woman, most guys don't make it to the second date. Doc Love. Take your hat off, boy, when you talk to me. From Feed the Tree by Belly, 1993. To improve the golden moment of opportunity is the great art of life. Samuel Johnson. Rule number 1 of poker: always try to see your opponent's cards. From a Sicilian gambling guide from the 1700s. Latin hides the stupidity of the priest. Sicilian proverb. The rejected stone will become the cornerstone of the wall. Sicilian proverb. If Freud had used Vivarin, maybe he could have understood the brain faster. From an ad in the Columbia University student newspaper in 1990. Pretty cheesy ad. Vivarin is a caffeine supplement. The power to command has never meant the power to remain mysterious. French General Ferdinand Foch. Insight makes argument ridiculous. John Lancaster Spaulding, educator and clergyman, 1840 to 1916. To secure approval, one must remain within the bounds of conventional mediocrity. John Lancaster Spaulding. Is the Pope Catholic? Worn-out question regarding an obvious matter. Did Columbus discover America? Russian variation on Is the Pope Catholic? Does a bear shit in the woods? profound variation on Is the Pope Catholic? Does the Pope shit in the woods? Heard at the hunting lodge. In moments of extreme danger, things can get done that were previously considered impossible. German General Erwin Rommel. This quotation has also been translated like this: mortal danger is an effective antidote. Lost my place here. An effective antidote for fixed ideas. Imitation can acquire pretty much everything, except the power that created the thing imitated. Henry Haskins, stockbroker, 1875 to 1957. Many of us are impersonations of what we know we ought to be. Henry Haskins. It is the honest lies we tell, statements factually correct but essentially deceiving, which debauch our manhood and stunt our growth. Henry Haskins. There are other sources of psychological knowledge that become accessible at the very point where the experimental method fails us. Wilhelm Wundt, eminent psychologist, 1832 to 1920. Let's stick that one in the Quotation Hall of Fame. There are countless suns and countless earths, all rotating around their suns in exactly the same way as the planets of our solar system. Giordano Bruno, who was burned at the stake in the year 1600 for espousing such views that now seem plain obvious. There is no absolute up and down, no absolute position in space, just the position of one body in respect to others. Giordano Bruno. There is no such thing as up or down in space, only in or out. Buckminster Fuller. Where is it written that a smart woman can't also be stacked? Celebrity chef Padma Lakshmi. What a safe and terrible answer, so characteristic of the careful man. Bell, from A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Almost carries no weight, especially in matters of the heart. From A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. When no plan is laid, where the disposal of time is surrendered merely to the chance of incident, chaos will soon reign. Victor Hugo. They try to make the public forget their earlier obscurantism in order that their present obscurantism may not be recognized for what it is. Bertrand Russell, speaking of the historical role of the clergy in sabotaging scientific advancement. Definition of obscurantism: the practice of deliberately preventing the facts from becoming known. We awaken in others the same attitude of mind we hold toward them. Elbert Hubbard, 1856 to 1915, American author. Brutal men with unlimited power are the same all over the world. Mary Chestnut, Civil War diarist. I happened on the idea of fitting an engine to a bicycle simply because I didn't want to ride crowded trains and buses. Soichiro Honda, developer, of the motorcycle. And this concludes Astute Quotations, Part 26.